Hello, we've done a week of this. That's crazy. I put out a super long video the other day. I'm trying to make a bunch of compilations. Whatever. This isn't interesting to new people clicking on, so we'll talk at the end. Welcome. Today we're going to be answering some questions that are on my previous video, and today's question is from Stephanie, and it's, how do you keep track of what lore is known by the readers so far versus what you know as a writer, and how do you check if you told readers everything they need to know? And there's another question, we'll get to that as well if we have. I think that's a pretty cool question. So, how do you keep track of your lore, and how do you keep track of what readers know versus what you know? I think whenever we're thinking about the knowledge of a reader, I wouldn't think of it in binaries. I wouldn't think of it as know and do not know. Because, for one, when you're thinking about the reader is an amalgamation of all sorts of readers, so it's not going to have one answer. You're going to get a survey back of different amounts of knowledge. And so when you are considering your lore, you need to know what is important. That stuff needs to be iterated on. You need to repeat it. Whereas less important information, the sorts of clues and foundational world building that is nice to know, but not necessarily it doesn't necessarily break your story to not know these things, that doesn't need to be as iterated on as other things. Iteration is kind of the name of the game when it comes to longer form stories, especially in comics where people check in periodically and will forget things just kind of naturally. When we're thinking about the amalgam of readers, we're thinking both of someone who's binge reading and we're thinking of someone who is casually reading or not locking in as often. When I think about how I keep track of that, I think it's kind of simple to keep track of major things, because major things should be repeated. When you sit down to reread your script, which you should frequently reread your script and intentionally do so that you get a sense of what it's like to read it. Give yourself time away from it and you'll be surprised what you find, I guess. In a sense, you want to show and tell, a lot of the times. A lot of times you want to show something in your world and then tell a bit about it, explain some more in later scenes. Each time a concept is brought in, and you can do this without being boring and repetitive. Iteration, I suppose, sounds repetitive, and that's not what you want. I think that when you are iterating something, you're usually also bringing something new in. It's waves of the ocean that go a little farther each time. You cover the same ground and you add a little bit more so that people who are grasping concepts aren't feeling like their time is wasted. You want to go a little bit further each time, and it gives everyone else a chance to understand as well if they're falling behind, if they get a reintroduction of something. Because especially when you're doing some sort of really big world builder explainer thing, that usually gets lost on people. I find that people intuitively might grasp something like that, but really will doubt themselves until they see things in practice more often. I think the best way to tell if readers are getting things isn't to ask them do they understand. It's to see if they're coming up with theories. I find when people are theory crafting in the right direction, whether or not they're getting close to the correct answer, if they're using the correct bits to make theories, that's how you can really tell that your audience is grasping something. Whereas if they're saying that they're confused, that is usually a sign that they have given up on trying. And your mileage kind of will vary on that side of things. I guess I'm kind of touching on like the major point of this, which is it's impossible to know how readers feel about something without having readers. So you need to get your script in the hands of other people. You need them to read it. You need other people to read your comic, and you need to gather understanding from that. You can organize things in a way that like you can keep track of like different information that's shared by simply like making lists and things like that can be helpful. You can get a better sense of if you're iterating on something enough, or if like maybe you need to like hammer in a concept more. It's kind of proportional to how important something is. So like think of it in like the simplest, silliest terms, right? Like your main character is in a lot of things. Your main character is going to be in most of your scenes because they're the main character. And it would be weird to have your main character be in like one or two scenes and then they defeat the villain at the end. And you're like, who the hell's that guy? And you're like, well, that's the main character, right? Like concepts and things, they're kind of similar to that. Like if you want something to be weighty and important, you need it to be shown throughout. I suppose like what I'm touching on here is like Deus Ex Machina, but I guess that is what I'm touching on. And I suppose like this idea of like sitting down and like organizing to see like what is being brought up where would flow into your second question that you asked, because you also asked, how do you organize your files, drafts, visual development, etc. I will say that I am incredibly messy. I think you might be able to tell from some of my video topics how I'm a little all over the place. I'm an artist. Ursula keeps things in even messier files than me. I was just today, I'm working on like a super special secret video. I needed to go through a bunch of like visual development, and she didn't even name any of her files, which is okay, whatever. They were all like Untitled 1, Untitled 2, Untitled 3, driving me insane. And I had to download each one individually because they were all on the cloud, and I had to download it, see what it was, be like, nope, that's not the file, and download the next one, see if that was the file, clear off space on her computer because it's brimming, and it was crazy. So don't do that. Name things nicely, organize your files, put them into nice folders. For me, I use Scrivener a lot. I think there's tons about Scrivener that like I couldn't even really touch on right now because it's so like in depth. I highly recommend it for organizing scripts and things. I would just follow the tutorial, and there is so many functionalities in Scrivener that is overwhelming. But after it's overwhelming, it becomes incredibly useful for organizing your documents, tagging things with keywords and whatnot. I also will make like little things in like HTML. I've gotten really into making my own like Wikipedias that I hide on my comic sites. You can find my 9.1, but I also keep like secret pages of it away from the public to keep track of everything because I like having it there. I also make videos. As I mentioned, I made a super long video where I spliced together all of my world building for the Ascendance of Crow's story. So I spliced all of that together, and that's very useful to just like listen to myself talking about the story. It's very nice, useful for me. So I figured like some people might also enjoy to listen to it. But yeah, like I would love to like have more questions about this specifically, because like I have so many directions I could go with it. So like if anyone has any questions on that, it'd be great. I want to go work on some other things right now, actually. And yeah, so please leave me more questions. And if you don't have any questions, leave a comment talking about what you did today with your comic, or you can leave a little emoji representing what you did, and a little. I've been enjoying like the two emojis you've been doing. There's been some great ones. Yeah, I will screenshot every comment that I get, and I will slowly go through and answer them. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. If not, I can expand upon it. We got this. We're into a whole second week of this. That's crazy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Goodbye.